Welcome back to Moonshine Performance. Today we have the 396 big block Chevy out of the Chevelle that we sold. Now, traded off for the dragster named Sloppy. So today we're going to be tearing this motor apart and just inspecting and getting it ready to be put back together and sold. In this video, we're going to be tearing this thing down. I'm not going to really go over anything. I'll tell you what we're doing. So I just got the valve cover off. And I'm not gonna really go over anything and what we found or anything because everything was all right. It was good. And right now we're trying to get that plate off the intake there, but it wouldn't come off, so we just left it on the intake. It's just an adapter. Really, it wasn't needed, but he used it for a spacer. Camera fell. So now I'm working on getting the heads off and getting everything ready to be cleaned up and put back together. It's a new day now. And we're kind of thinking of how we're going to start here and what we're going to do. But going right now, I brought over a bowl. That way we can put all the head hardware in that. So all the rockers need to come off, all the push rods need to come out, and all the guide plates and the heads need to come out. Because we're going to change the guide plates from the head on this motor over to the Sloppy motor, which is that 454 board 30 over sitting on the bench back here in that black bag right behind my back right now. So the reason we're doing that is because the guide plates in the motor that is on the stand right now are stronger, and so are the push rods. So we're going to transfer those over there and probably just keep the ones off of the Sloppy motor and put them onto the Chevelle motor and get them put on and sell the Chevelle motor to fund the dragster sitting behind this motor here. So right now I am just being informed that I need to take the rockers off. I was gonna leave them on, just leave them on the head because they could have stayed on the head because we're not gonna take these heads apart. The motor only has around 300 miles on it, and everything was perfect on it. We're just going through it and making sure that it's all good because last time this motor saw any daylight on the inside was probably 12 years ago. Actually, I'd say over 20 years ago because this motor was built in Brett's kitchen when he lived in an apartment. And it's been in the Chevelle ever since, and the Chevelle has hardly run. So right now I'm still working on getting these heads off. I just got all the push rods out and I got all the rockers off. So I'm just going to go through, and there's a whole bunch of bolts on the head that goes into the block. And those are all, when you assemble it, they're all torqued down to a certain spec. And actually right now we're draining the coolant, which is very, very annoying and messy. So we're going to get a funnel here, and then he's got a funnel down there to try and keep it from splashing. And I'm cleaning up the mess as he goes. But there's two ports that need to be drained, one on each side of the motor. And we just got both of those out. We already drained the oil previously, I think even before we started the video. But this thing's ready to be flipped and turned. Nothing's going to leak out of any ports or anything like that. So right now I'm going through and getting all these bolts off of the head here and trying to get working towards getting the head off. And on the first swing that you just saw on the other side, I broke a spark plug on accident. So we'll have to find another one like that. But like I said, there's just a whole bunch of bolts that need to be taken off, and then we can get that off. That case that he's holding is a lifter case that he just made. He took a 2x6 and drilled 16 holes in it because there's 16 lifters. And since the lifters are frictional, they have to go right back into the same spot because they have to have the same wear pattern. So that case is numbered, and he has to make sure that every lifter goes in the right spot, and then when it comes off, it goes back into the motor in the same spot that it came off of. Right here we get the head off and both heads, and everything looks really good in there. Nothing's wrong. There's no turned pistons like the last motor we tore down, and everything looked really, really clean and nice. Even the lifter valley all the bores in the lifter were completely clean. There was nothing wrong with the lifters, nothing wrong with the cam. Every single bore was completely fine there. And Brett just got off that balancer there, and that thing has seen some better days. For some reason, all the rubber was pushed out the sides, and it was all messed up. But right now, I am working on getting this oil pan off here, and there's, I believe there's 7/16 all the way around, and There's probably about 15 bolts that you got to go around and get. And then once you do that, you can break the seal with a hammer here and knock it off, and then it lifts down. So after that, well, the reason I take the pan off while the motor is still facing up, that way if anything is broken or wrong with it, it sits in the pan and we don't lose it on the ground or lose it inside of the motor. And so I get that down and we flip the motor over, and I am starting to get all of the rods out and get all the pistons out. I'm untorquing everything, and this is just a long process that has got to be done. Somebody's got to do it. So you just go through and then you turn the motor over and get the next one, turn the motor over again, and keep going. And this is just a long process. We needed to save one set of the rod rings, rod bearings, and then we also had to save one set of the rear main bearings and middle main bearings for mock-up, he said. So we'll need those. He packaged those up and he got those labeled and ready to go. If you see behind there where it says Moroso in the back top right, both heads are sitting there to this block, and those are just going to get cleaned up and make sure there's nothing wrong with them. We'll check valve seats and everything like that, but we'll make sure there's nothing wrong with them. And we are going to throw them back in the block, or back on the motor, after we get everything done and ready to go. We're just going to go through with a honer and make sure the bore is nice and straight, and make sure it's just good to go. That really didn't look bad at all. Everything looked really good on it. So I'm just getting the pistons out now. Next, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the timing cover here. So again, those are just 7/16 bolts that go through, and then you can pop the timing cover off from the top. And then there's a little, there's two gears. They look like eyeballs, kind of, because there's a, I don't know what it's called in the middle, but they'll just come out, and because this thing's gear driven. And then after that, you got to get the fuel pump rod thing out, and then you can start to pull your cam out. But crank obviously comes first, just like that, and then you can get all your bearings out from the journals of the crank, and then you can get out the cam, which is, you just got to be careful. You see it comes out slow, and I showed you that because there was like red and blue paint on it for some reason. He has no idea what happened there. Maybe maybe when he put it together he painted it just because. But what you see right now is me getting the freeze plugs out of here, and these things you got to knock them in and then pull them out sideways, and they're pretty simple if you know how to do it, but if you don't know how to do it, they could be a real pain. Speaking of a real pain, what I absolutely hate is these oil galley plugs. So if you see where I just took those freeze plugs out of, there's like 4 of them, I believe, smaller plugs on the top there, well, really the bottom of the motor. And you have to put, if you use they're Allen head plugs, but if you use an Allen head, you're probably just going to strip it out. So what you use is an easy out. And you got to pound that in there and twist it out, and then sometimes they pull out and you got to use a bigger size and pound it in there and twist it out again. But after you've done that, that's pretty much it. There's still some on the back, but we'll get those later. That's all. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.